And for me, I had to look back at my childhood and say, what was wrong with that? And how can I do it better for my children? And I saw the impact of that lack of connection and validation on me, which resulted in depression, self-esteem issues, self-worth issues.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Mommy Wellness Club. My name is Portia Hadebe. If you're new to the channel, thank you for tuning in. Please remember to click the subscribe button. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you. I appreciate you all. So today I have someone I really respect and admire. She's a mom, she's a digital creator, and she's also a co-host on Breaking Cycles podcast. And her name is Gaopalelwe. Phalaetsile.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. As Portia has said, my name is Gaopalelwe, but you guys can call me Gao. I'm also known as Feminist Mommy or Mommy Feminist, depending on which social media network you're on. I am a journalist actually by profession, but I'm also a digital and content creator. And like she said, I am a co-host of a podcast called Breaking Cycles with Gao and Karabo. And my content really is about navigating healing from trauma and parenting better so that our kids have a better future.
Okay. And how, by the way, you have such a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Gaopalelwe, right? And I love the positive meaning to it. It means Gastoana, Gaopalelwe, when you translate it in English is
I think it's undefeated, capable. It has so many definitions. So it's a beautiful name given to me by my mother's father.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's dive right in, right?
Yeah.
I want to know for you, what does healthy and conscious parenting mean to you?
Yeah.
As a mother.
Yeah. So for me, conscious and healthy parenting means connectedness.
Okay.
So it means that instead of seeing my children as people I have to fix or behave a certain way or control them in a certain way, parenting is a relationship. We never think of parenting as a relationship until our kids are older. We always think of parenting as something we do. It's like a job, it's like a chore. But in actual fact, there is something beautiful about connecting with your children on a human level and having an actual connected relationship with them. So for me, conscious parenting is really about humbling myself and breaking down that top-down approach to parenting and getting to their level, getting to know them, and also having them getting to know me, because I don't know these people. They came out of nowhere.
You're getting to know them as much as they're getting to know you as a mom.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love that. And on your podcast, Breaking Cycles, you've detailed some of the things that you had to unlearn in your upbringing and parent your kids the way you are now. What are some of those things?
So for me, I was raised in obviously an African family, more blended. I didn't grow up with in a house with a mom and dad. Okay. So I was raised by my grandmother, then raised by my aunt. My dad was there and there. And I think for me, as much as I acknowledge that they didn't have much information when it comes to parenting, and they didn't have the tools to parent me better, there was a disconnectedness in our relationships. And while my grandmother I have fonder memories of my grandmother than I do of my aunt. And I think we don't really think about how there are certain people who are not equipped to raise children. And I think as much as I really have a little bit of a soft spot for my aunt somewhere in there, I don't think she was equipped to raise children, and she did a lot of damage. So for example, children are not heard, they're just seen, which is common for a lot of us. Your opinion doesn't really matter. Consequences equal punishment that is quite punitive and hurtful to a child. There's a lot of trauma that goes around when you're raised in a home where your opinion's invalid, where you're beaten as a form of punishment, where you are not validated. So that's one of the things that was lacking, where you are criticized more than you are celebrated or validated. And for me, I had to look back at my childhood and say, what was wrong with that and how can I do it better for my children? And I saw the impact of that lack of connection and validation on me, which resulted in depression, self-esteem issues, self-worth issues. Yeah.
You've also opened up about being a survivor of child abuse. Can you detail some of that?
So for me, for the longest time, I didn't think that I experienced child abuse because it's so common in African homes that a child gets beaten or a child gets shamed or shouted at in an attempt to change whatever behavior that they may have. But as I grew older and started needing things like therapy and being triggered by my own children in their behaviors, I had to dig deep and unpack what happened to me was abuse. Also because we love our parents, right? We don't want to think of our parents or our caregivers as people who abused us. So firstly, it took a while to accept the abuse. But for me, the abuse came from, when you do something wrong as a child and you're shamed, either you're called lazy, either you're told you can't do anything, you'll never amount to anything. That is verbal abuse. And because children take everything personally, that becomes their inner voice. And that became my inner voice. So I became an adult who didn't believe in herself, who did things to prove a point, not because she wants to, who didn't have nice words to say for herself. Another form of abuse I experienced was beatings. I think we don't really talk about how traumatic being beaten as a child is. Nobody wants to beat an adult or be beaten as an adult. We have assault cases. But a child is much more vulnerable because I couldn't run away. I tried, but it didn't work. You can't get out. You can't up and leave when you're being beaten. But we don't talk about the body, also image issues that come from being beaten, not being comfortable in your skin, not honoring your body because your parents didn't honor it by assaulting it, and the psychological impact of that. Another punishment I experienced was being told I can't eat. We don't talk a lot about how psychologically that creates problems with how you eat, and even when you're an adult. So for me, for example, I can have no money and I'm okay. But if I don't have food, there's something that I have this anxiety that, something is going to happen to me, because for my brain, that triggers something that happened to me in childhood where I was told you can't eat, and the hunger, was just so unbearable for a child. So those types of things, or being woken up thrown by water, those things are abusive, but they're so normalized in Black communities.
Sure. And how do you think that has shaped how you parent now?
Yeah. I think in the beginning, it made me a really anxious parent. Like I always thought that I'm not good enough, number one, because remember the abuse said something to me first of all. So I never thought that I'm good enough to parent. I never thought that I would do a very great job because I was taught that I will amount to nothing, that nothing I touch will ever succeed. So the minute I became a parent, it was like, whoa, will I be actually able to do this? But it also triggered parts of me that, that mirrored my childhood. So when my child would have a tantrum, for example, that would be a trigger for me, and I would respond the way in which my abuser responds, because that's all I know. So instead of responding to my child in a more healthier way, I would bicker, So there was just so much turmoil going inside of me until I realized, hey, we can't have the same cycle. And that's why our podcast is called Breaking Cycles. It was to say, there must be a better way to do this, because one of the things that I noticed with my child was children are so innocent, they're so impressionable, they are so vulnerable. Like literally, I have the power to do anything I want to my child, whether I go to jail or whatever, doesn't matter. The point is I do have that power, and I had to recognize that with that power comes a lot of responsibility. And I had to look back and think, also at the same time, you call yourself an activist for women's rights. How do you champion women's rights, but you don't champion children's rights in your own home? What happens to that child's voice? If you're saying that women matter, you're hypocritical if that child's voice does not matter, because why do you matter more than him?
That's very important. That's very important.
Absolutely.
I think it also goes back to creating a bond with your children. How important is that for you to create a bond, where it's not just, oh, you're a child, I'm the parent, I'm the authority?
I think for me, I'm going to speak about that from the perspective of a Black woman, right? And I think for me, creating a very intimate and healthy bond with my children has been a task that I feel I deserve, number one. Because I think as much as I spoke of my aunt and the difficulties she had in parenting me and ended up harming me a lot, it's because Black women always parent from a place of exhaustion, lack of support, lack of consideration, and just being expected to perform miracles. We are expected, whether we are the mother, the aunt, or the grandmother, there's just so much expectation for us. And pressure, right? To appear a certain way as a mom. It's almost as if we are expected to figure it out and know exactly what to do. And for me, creating a bond with my child has helped me, kind of not take that away, but remove all those walls so that my child understands that I'm human. Because at the end of the day, no matter how people and society perceive me as a mother, the most important people who need to perceive me in a way that is healthy are my children. They matter more than what other people think of me or see me as a mom. And I think I had to do that because I realized it also creates empathy for me from my children. They know that I make mistakes. They understand me. My son said something recently. I looked at it and I was like, this is so cute. But it sounds horrible, but it forms part of the conversations we have. But he said to me, I don't mean this in a bad way, but mommy, I think that if you die, we should put like a playlist of all your favorite songs. And to me, that said to me...
And this is the 9-year-old saying this.
And this said to me that this human being understands who you are. He observes you. He loves that you love certain music. He knows your playlist. He's probably going to call the shots and say, my mommy wanted that music. And that's really what it is. You don't have to be friends with your children, but there needs to be some kind of connection and relationship. And it also is helpful for them. Because what I lacked in childhood are one of the most important, how can I put it, emotional needs for children, which are belonging, connectedness, and acceptance. And when you form a bond with your child, those three things make such a big impact in their development and growth, especially to become emotionally resilient. They don't become kids like me who grow up looking for validation, acceptance, belonging all over the place, where they could potentially find it in the most horrible spaces because there's nobody else there to guide them.
Speaking of the abuse and now you being a parent, I know you've been on a healing journey that you've also openly spoken about. What does that mean for you?
Yo, guys, I feel like a lot of the times on social media, we make healing sound so simple and so easy. It's like almost like a trend. There's even hashtags like healing moms, healing whatever. But I think for me, I've learned that healing is quite messy. Healing for me has meant having to confront a lot of the things that I've been running away from, that I've just detailed to you, because for the longest time, I haven't really talked about my experience with abuse as a child. I always sort of put it away because I always saw that child me as this broken person that I just wanted to be away from. And healing has meant bringing that inner child forward and saying, I accept you and I want you to know that it's okay now. There's no need for you to be scared anymore. You're okay. And you can do better. And you didn't know any better. The mistakes that you've done as a young adult, you can forgive yourself for them, learn from them and do better. And I think it's a deeply painful experience because I've had to actually admit that I suffer from depression and anxiety. And I've had to seek professional help, which often can make you feel like a failure, especially because we live in a society that has so much stigma. I remember my first time being admitted in an institution. I almost sat there and felt like I'm such a failure because it felt like I'd failed at a relationship, which is a big part of our identity, because my relationships, because of my childhood traumas and the bad decisions I was making due to my childhood traumas, my relationships were very unstable. I couldn't keep myself in one, but for some reason, it's like I always yearned it. But when I was in it, it had to mirror my childhood. And we don't talk about how abuse becomes normal in your brain. And what then happens is when you meet someone, a friend, a partner, for me it was always romantic relationships, someone who mirrors that trauma, it feels comfortable and relatable, so you sit
So it's familiar.
It's familiar.
Yeah.
And we don't talk a lot about how that recreates what you know and you think this is normal, but your active mind knows that this cannot be right.
Yeah.
But losing it just feels like, oh my gosh, I'm losing me. Because now you really, especially because my abuser died last year as well. And it was almost like I'm sitting here like, what does my life mean now?
Yeah.
So healing for me has been messy, but it has such amazing rewards, especially in the person that I am, in terms of how I, navigate my life for me and my children. At first, I thought that I had to heal for my kids because that's what we always think.
Yeah.
But my journey has taught me that I deserve to heal for me, and my kids will benefit from that.
Why is it so important for us to, for you as well, for us to really cut ourselves some slack as moms?
We all know how rough it is. We all know how extremely painful it can be and lonely, right? Especially if you had a child really young, or you have a child during the prime of your career with your peers also in their prime of their careers. It can be so isolating to be a mom. And I think for me, I always say to moms, look, take it each day, not each week, not each month. Because if you take it each week and each month, hey, you're gonna look back and you're gonna be like, I messed up, And I think for me, also with conscious and connected parenting, is I love the fact that I now feel so comfortable to repair. Because there's something that I read or I heard from a psychologist that said, it's not that children are hurt that traumatizes them. We can't avoid hurt, right? It's the fact that they are alone in the hurt that traumatizes them. So children will go through pain, and some of the pain will come from you. My son does not forget the memory where I was so angry the one day. And as he grows, he describes it so much better and better. The other day he said to me, well, what scared me about that day isn't the fact that you threw something across the room. It's the rage you had that I was so fearful of. And being a parent and a mom for me, in my journey of healing, is continuously having this conversation as part of taking responsibility for my actions. And allowing him the space to say, this is how it made me feel.
I love that. Over and above that, our kids have a voice, but they know how to express themselves.
Yes.
They know what they want. They are independent. And I think it will also help equip them for the future.
Absolutely.
For the world outside of the home. What do you love the most about being a parent? What do you enjoy? See here, I'm in my calling.
I'm in my element.
Your element,
I think for me, I love seeing my children model the values I try to, or rather live the values I model for them. So when I see my children become empathetic to me and other people, when I see my children, become understanding, because people think children are not capable of those things, because people don't see children as full human beings, just who are still developing. And the little cuddles, and oh mommy, I love you, the cards that are on my fridge, being appreciated. But also just watching them develop and grow in a healthy way, as I just sit there and I'm like, this is what life is about.
And if you were to give them advice for the future, say they stumble upon this video and you have words to just carry them through in their adulthood, what would it be?
I think for me it would be what I always say to my kids. And I always say to them, I love you regardless of what you've done. And whether I'm here or not, I want you to take that love with you. It's called grace. Nobody else in this world will give you that. Like, you will commit a crime and there will be nobody to give you grace. People will be harsh, which is okay. It's warranted you committed a crime, but let my grace for you and love for you carry you. And remember that I love you not because of what you do for me or what you've done for me, but just for being you. Your entire being deserves the love that I give you each and every day. So I hope that just carries you into your future.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's been such an honor Such a lovely conversation.
Thank you.
I wish we could go on and on and on, but we have to cut it here.
Thank you for having me, and I'm going to be cheering you on.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. It's been such an amazing conversation with you, Hao. I hope you took some nuggets from it, and if this is the kind of content that speaks to you, that resonates with you, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share this conversation with others. And till next time, from me and Hao, bye.
Bye.